"Why are you being so rude?" Mr. Williams asked his wife, his voice laced with confusion and hurt. She stood before him, her expression cold and unyielding. In her hand, she held a neatly stacked set of papers. "I'm leaving," she said flatly, extending the documents toward him. "Here are the divorce papers." Mr. Williams felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. His hands trembled as he took the papers, his mind racing. This was the woman he had loved for 15 years, the mother of his children. How had they come to this? "Haven't I been a good husband? Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice cracking. She smirked, a look of cruel satisfaction dancing in her eyes. "I'm taking the kids, along with all the property you bought and registered under my name." Mr. Williams' heart pounded in his chest. "No way," he said firmly. "I'm not letting you take my kids away from me." She laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "You're funny, thinking they're yours." His world tilted. The words felt like a dagger plunging into his chest. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. His mind struggled to process the weight of her revelation. What did she mean by that? A week later, they were in court. The air in the courtroom was heavy with tension. Mr. Williams sat at the plaintiff's table, his hands clenched into fists. His wife sat opposite him, exuding an air of smug confidence. The judge, an older man with kind but weary eyes, cleared his throat and looked at Mr. Williams. "Mr. Williams, do you believe these children are biologically yours?" Mr. Williams straightened his back and nodded. "Of course, Your Honor. I'm their father. We've been married for 15 years. I've raised them, cared for them, loved them." The judge sighed and adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Williams, after reviewing the DNA test results, I regret to inform you that your son, Matthew Jr., is not your biological son." A hushed murmur swept through the courtroom. Mr. Williams's breath caught in his throat. His mind reeled, his heart shattering into a million pieces. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "That can't be right." The judge continued, his voice solemn. "Furthermore, your daughter, Grace, is also not your biological daughter." The words hit him like a freight train. Tears welled in his eyes as he turned to look at the children he had spent his life loving. They were his whole world. How could they not be his? Across the room, his wife sat unmoved, her expression indifferent. She showed no remorse, no shame. She simply crossed her arms and sighed. "What about the property?" she asked impatiently. The judge's gaze hardened. "Mrs. Williams, after reviewing the financial records, the court has determined that all properties in question are legally registered under Mr. Williams's corporation. Therefore, they remain his assets." Her face drained of color. "That's not possible," she protested, her voice rising in desperation. The judge ignored her outburst. "Additionally, due to paternity fraud, Mr. Williams has the right to sue for financial damages." She paled even further, realizing that the power she thought she held was slipping away. Mr. Williams sat in silence, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. He had lost the children he thought were his own. He had been betrayed by the woman he had devoted his life to. But in that moment, as he looked at the faces of the children he had loved so deeply, he realized something profound. Losing everything that was fake in life was the only way to find what was real. With tears in his eyes, he stood up and walked out of the courtroom, leaving behind the lies and deceit. His heart ached, but for the first time in years, he felt a strange sense of freedom. A painful truth was better than a comforting lie. And now, he could finally start anew.